What's going on, guys? Hexadaze here, back with another Zenless Zone Zero video. As part of the upcoming big patch 1.1 event, the Camellia Golden week, we're going to be able to obtain our first free event W engine, the Gilded Blossom. We got details from the devs about a week back on this weapon. The effect is going to work on your attack type characters, so none of the patch 1.1 rate up characters, but it does look like a general all-around good W engine for the attack type characters on your roster. For free-to-play players, it's going to be hard to figure out which A-rank W engines are the best and which are the best value for your long-term investment. So in this video, I want to help you determine just how good the Gilded Blossom is, how does it compare to the gold standard Starlight engine, and whether or not you should invest into it on your account. Let's not waste any time and get right into it. Taking a look at our weapon stats for the Gilded Blossom, we've got a base attack of 594 and an attack percent substat of 25%. This is going to be really typical for your A rank attack type engines, and it's going to be the same as the Starlight engine, which we'll see in a second. Our W engine effect is going to increase our attack by 6% and our damage dealt by our EX special attacks by 15%. However, of course, as part of the event, we will be getting all 5 copies of this weapon. So these are going to increase further up to 9.4% and 24%. The nice thing about this W engine effect is that it doesn't have to be triggered. It is always going to be active, really easy to use, really good value there. In case you missed my last video on the attack percent substat in Zenless Zone Zero, this 25% attack substat and this 6% attack increase are not equal. This 25% will only apply to your character's base attack, while the 6% is going to apply to your character's total attack. Basically, it's going to be a lot stronger. It's going to essentially act the same as a damage percent increase. So let's go ahead and check out the Starlight engine. The Starlight engine is going to have a base attack of 594 and an attack percent substat of 25% once we get it to max level, just like the Gilded Blossom. And once we have all 5 copies of this engine, which is pretty easy to get, we are going to increase the equipper's attack by 19.2% for 12 seconds after triggering a dodge counter or quick assist. Unlike the Gilded Blossom, we are going to have to trigger the W engine effect for this particular weapon. However, it is going to be a very strong effect, applying to all of your character's damage once it is activated. This particular weapon can be a bit easier to use on stages when you're fighting several enemies versus a single boss, as you'll be able to trigger dodge counters more frequently. After you stun an enemy and put them into the daze state, where you can get off all of that additional damage, you will typically be relying on quick assist to activate this W engine effect, which is really easy to pull off overall as long as you have a support on your team. All right, so let's talk about which characters I think that the Gilded Blossom is going to be best for, and really the only character that I think really makes full use of this weapon at the time is going to be Nekomata. So shout out to the wizards over at Pridewin. When evaluating this weapon, I am using the burst rotation that these guys have figured out for Nekomata as kind of her optimal burst rotation. You can see it uses a chain attack, quick assist, 3 different EX special attacks, her ultimate, and then a 5 basic attack combo. So Nekomata is one of the characters that can utilize her EX special attack quite a bit because it is only a 40 energy cost, so she can do that 3 times during her burst rotation. If we look at the amount of damage that her EX special attacks contribute to this total rotation, assuming all her skills are at level 9, it adds up to about 38%. So we can see that's why Nekomata is such a strong candidate for this particular weapon. On the contrary, we've got a character like Zhu Yuan, who's going to use about 2 EX special attacks during her burst rotation, and then fill it in with a lot of other types of attacks. Looking at the overall contribution from her EX special attacks for this particular rotation, it's going to be about 20%. Zhu Yuan is going to do a lot of her damage using these kind of enhanced basic attacks, so it makes sense that overall her EX specials are going to contribute less, and therefore the Gilded Blossoms is just going to be a worse weapon overall on a character like Zhu Yuan. So when I say it's worse, how much worse really is it? And it might not be quite as much as you think. If we look at the Gilded Blossom versus the Starlight engine for that optimal burst rotation that we just looked at for Nekomata, it's only going to be about 3% less damage for the Gilded Blossom, assuming that the Starlight engine's effect is active for the entire burst duration. And for Zhu Yuan, this is going to decrease down to about a 6% difference between the Starlight engine and the Gilded Blossom. So it's not a whole lot worse. They're both pretty competitive, and it is definitely worth mentioning that the Starlight engine, this effect does have to be procced, whereas the Gilded Blossom is just always active. So what does it mean to really make use of the effect from the Starlight engine? So there are 3 reliable ways to activate the W engine effect on the Starlight engine. First is by simply triggering a dodge counter. This can be pretty reliably done every 12 seconds, but may be hard to pull off quickly after swapping in your main DPS. Second is by using your support's EX skill. After using an EX skill, you will be able to swap to the next character in your lineup and perform a quick assist, so as long as you have energy, this is a brainless option. And third is by using a support character as the last character in your chain attack in order to perform a quick assist. Between these 3 options, it should be pretty easy to maintain nearly full uptime on the Starlight engine for the majority of players. Where some people may run into trouble really will be for the early floors of Hollow Zero before you have a support in your group. For fights where you're not able to consistently trigger the passive of the Starlight engine, the Gilded Blossom is actually going to be somewhere between 10% and 15% better than the Starlight engine, which is definitely something to keep in mind. That said, on paper, for everyone but Nekomata, the Starlight engine is just a stronger option. The 2 reasons for this are going to be that most characters get a lot of damage percent bonuses from their kit or from other characters in the party, and it is just less reliant on EX skills overall for damage. If we go in and we look at some of our popular main DPS characters, we can see that Nekomata, with her core skill, she's going to get a damage increase of 50% from her core passive, an additional damage increase on her next EX special attack by 35%. Someone like Zhu Yuan is going to get a 30% increased shotgun shell damage and an additional damage buff at 30%. Soldier 11 is going to get 35% damage increase on her basic attack and dash attacks, and 10% more fire damage with her additional ability. And Ellen's going to get an increase in ice damage by 3%, which can stack up to 10 times. So all these characters have a lot of ways to get additional damage percent, making that attack percent stat so much more valuable. The fact that the Gilded Blossom performs so similarly under most circumstances to an existing A-rank weapon in the game, the Starlight engine, which can also be obtained free to play while not really introducing any new mechanics, I believe is part of a bigger problem with ZZZ, and why ZZZ isn't necessarily fun for people to watch. And look, before I say this, I just want to make clear the following. I make content for fun. I don't need the money from content. Would I like it? Sure, but not at the expense of not enjoying the content that I make. I've seen creators like MTash talk about it, but in general, it seems like the analytics for ZZZ show that players aren't as interested in guides for this game as something like Honkai Star Rail, Genshin Impact, or even Wuthering Waves. And I think this is partially because of a lack of build expression currently in the game. While I don't think this is as impactful in a turn-based game like Honkai Star Rail, I believe it does have a pretty big impact on Zenless Zone Zero in this action RPG genre. A lack of build expression, can come from things like tying weapon passives to agent specialties, very specific weapon passives that are clearly catered towards a specific character's kit, and switching weapons, not really changing the rest of your build or playstyle. I'm not a big fan of the weapon passives in Zenless Zone Zero being tied to your agent specialty, but I imagine this was done in order to simplify builds and maybe balancing of characters. But this means that if I want to build, for example, Sokaku as a pure damage dealer, I can't, despite the fact that Sokaku gets some pretty big buffs to her personal damage with her Mindscapes and through her core skill in her kit inherently. I'm actually working on a separate video right now on the current limitations of the Zenless Zone Zero roster, which should come out not too long after this one. And these two things seem to contribute to what feels like a lack of build expression currently in the game, and the desire to test different builds and teams, at least for me personally. I know this is a bit of a rant, but I wanted to get my thoughts out there as it's something I've been thinking about a lot, and I want to see what others think as well. So if you have any feelings about this or thoughts you'd like to share, please leave a comment. I'm definitely interested in hearing what you guys have to think. So to wrap up this video and summarize, the Gilded Blossom feels like a really solid weapon. However, it really only currently ties to the best in slot A-rank weapon for Nekomata, so this might be one to hold on to until we get another damage dealer in the future who specifically focuses around dealing damage with their EX special attacks. ZZZ feels like it's lacking in build variety at this time, and hopefully the devs continue to build on the existing character and W engine roster in interesting ways that allow for some build expression moving forward. If you guys made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video and you'd like to see more content like this, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. I'll see you all soon for the next video. Peace.